Welcome to Life on Purpose, a weekly deep dive conversation about being deliberate in all areas of your life, from the work that you do to your health and habits, your relationships, or even just making the planet a better place. It's all about being self-aware, deliberate, and conscious each and every day. In conversations with personal development leaders, thought leaders, and inspirational people from all around the world, we'll discuss concrete examples, tools, and takeaways for you to apply to your own life. Welcome to Life on Purpose.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life on Purpose. I'm your host, Greg Berg, and I'm very happy to have you with us today. A very special new edition of a series that I'm calling Seeing the Light Through Uncertain Times. And we are doing this now on video, and then we'll also be porting the audio version over to the Life on Purpose website and the usual ways in which you listen to the Life on Purpose podcast. Also, another quick show note, if you like what you're hearing here and you're seeing here, if you're seeing the video version, please check out the Life on Purpose website at lifeonpurposeshow.com, where you can find episode summaries, information about the show, links to past episodes, and much more. So my guest today, he's a spiritual teacher, an entrepreneur, author, and coach. For the past 3 decades, he's been a leading voice in the movement to bring greater spirit, mindfulness, and meaning to the workplace through his writing, training, and speaking through his company, Dharma Consulting. He's worked with over 30,000 leaders from a wide variety of settings, Fortune 500 companies, healthcare, governmental, and nonprofit organizations, as well as mid-sized companies. He's also the author of the best-selling books, Awakening Corporate Soul, 4 Paths to Unleash the Power of People at Work. Also, To Do or Not to Do, How Successful Leaders Make Better Decisions. It's based on research and experiences with more than 200 companies, and You Are the Leader You've Been Waiting For, which won a 2008 Nautilus Award as a world-changing book in the Conscious Leadership Business category. His brand new course is called Face Fear, Live Free, a 40-day experience of the Bhagavad Gita. It's based on the teachings of one of the world's most precious texts of spiritual wisdom. It helps answer the question, can you stay connected to your deepest purpose and wisdom, even in difficult and challenging times, uncertain times like these? We're going to discuss all of that and much, much more today. Joining me via Skype from Encinitas, California, it's Eric Klein. Eric, welcome back to Life on Purpose.
Thank you, Greg. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for playing the home game here, Eric. We're segueing into a new world of Life on Purpose, the video version, and it's just falling back into some old habits of like, oh well, we goofed the intro up, we'll just stop and recut that. Like, no, wait, we're on video. We're gonna do that, and we're just gonna roll with it. We're gonna live with it.
Pulling back the curtain. Here's reality.
Yes, here is reality here in the very uncertain times we're in, and just a quick show note. I always like to be full transparency here. Eric is a friend and a client, and since the last time we spoke here on Life on Purpose, I started attending Sunday meditations whenever I can at Wisdom Heart, the beautiful space that you and your wife host and curate for those in the Wisdom Heart community in your home in Encinitas, California. And it's been a tremendous blessing and a gift for me to be able to do that whenever I'm in San Diego, whenever I'm fairly near to Encinitas. So thank you.
We love having you.
Yeah, it's great. So let's check in first, Eric. This is what I've been doing since I restarted the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I've had a few conversations here, just checking in with my guest here in these very uncertain times where there's so much unknown and fear and doubt, and we're not really sure how we're going to navigate all this. It's a lot of questions. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our life is sort of a home-based life, other than business travel, which a lot of the clients are pivoting to this kind of virtual medium. It's not exactly the same, but it opens up surprisingly rich avenues for connecting and communicating. So, and at this point, we're healthy, Davey and I, and our kids live nearby, and they're doing the shopping. Yeah. So that's an awesome thing.
Oh, that's great. And you've also been doing the Sunday meditations at Wisdom Heart virtually as well, which has been a fascinating segue to go from in-person experience, which is very powerful. And I look forward to getting back to when we get back to whatever the new normal is on the other side of all this. But it's been nice just to be able to continue that practice, to be able to have that as a constant Really?
And we added something. So we've added this everyday thing since we're here. We've added every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, both a Facebook Live and a Zoom. And the Zoom is available on you can get that information on our website, or maybe we'll have it in the show notes. And the Facebook Live is just on Facebook. And that's been fascinating too, because, for two perspectives, and I think it's a general principle for all of us to look at, which is one, for years, people around the world have been saying, can you stream Sunday meditation? And I was always saying, the sound quality won't be good. And it's like, I need to get a mixer and an audio guy and a whole thing. Like, it's so complicated. And then this shift in our environment caused it's just like, let's just start tomorrow. Boom. And, we've been refining it. But this is, the case. Sometimes we need conditions to draw our attention to areas of restriction in our own thinking, to conditions that draw our attention to areas of self-limitation that just don't hold up anymore. And the invitation is to move forward in new ways. So that's just it's a quality of uncertain times. That avenues for action and avenues for connection internally and in our world are being illuminated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that with this, I've decided to restart the podcast. I'm re-energized. I'm ready to have these conversations that I thought would be helpful selfishly, they were helpful for me first. And then, if they're helpful for me, maybe they're going to be helpful for other people. My community that I had built over all these years since 2011 when I started this podcast. And then I thought the old me would have said, oh no, you're doing a podcast with earbuds. Where's your good radio mic? Where's the studio? You have to have this lovely backdrop. Video, you don't like video. You're uncomfortable in video. You haven't practiced enough. All these excuses. Like you said, all the conditions were not there. And in the end, none of that matters right now.
Yeah, it's a long wait for the conditions to be just right, and you could turn it around and go, they are just right now for taking the next step in our path, whatever it is, taking the next step in terms of being more true to our purpose, as living a life on purpose in the midst of conditions. Yeah. Because one of the things that this pandemic is heightening our awareness of is the tenuous nature of conditions. And the fundamental uncertainty that can be masked when we are settled into a habitual way of being. And when we put so to speak, when we assume this institution will be here forever, or this situation will remain unchanging. It's never been the case, actually, that was true, but it can. But when life is relatively good, then there is a natural tendency in our nervous system to kind of dial down and go into a semi-habitual state. And now when things start falling apart, start becoming uncertain, when the innate impermanence and transitory qualities of our institutions, of our patterns, of our habits are being revealed, of course, one part of us is freaked out, and another part of us can go, what's happening? What is really the call? Neither one of them, I will prioritize, but we have to deal, of course, with the part of us that's freaked out if we're going to hear the call. And that's one of the things that I think the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the reasons we're relaunching this program, is it was a text that was written at a time when the world, it was a smaller world in that case of India, was in a huge state of turmoil and disorganization. And it hones in on a specific moment for a specific prince who's like a stand-in for all of us. His name is Arjuna. He's a stand-in for you, me, whoever, male, female, binary, trans. It doesn't make any difference. It's a stand-in for the human mind that says, I don't know what to do. Things are crazy. Things are out of control. In the very first chapter of the book, in poetry, he says, I'm overwhelmed with weakness. I don't know what to do. And he turns to the other character in the text, in the traditional language, Krishna. In more modern language, it would be the voice of wisdom and compassion, the voice of truth. So the human mind goes, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to guess. Tell me, which is the way that's best. And the whole rest of the 18 chapters are sort of this conversation between our mind, the everyday mind, the human mind, and the deep inner wisdom to understand, how can I engage in uncertain times in ways that are not putting rose-colored glasses on, and not putting tragedy-colored glasses on, not putting fantasy glasses on, and not putting the desperation glasses on. Taking all the glasses off so we can actually look and see what is true now and what is calling us to live purposefully in this moment.
Yeah, I love that. I love the balance you're talking about there, Eric, because I find that so many people are living at one extreme or the other right now. You see, so in our own families, in our own friend circles, in our tribes, as you said, there are people really far extreme, fierce. Everything is gloom and doom and fear, and they're just not able to get themselves out of that place of only seeing the fear and the negative aspects of what's happening. And there are people that are completely ignoring, almost in denial, that there's this major global pandemic happening and that there's very real consequences and all the things. And so, trying to get to that place of balance. And as I've learned from you over time, it's these bits of wisdom that we can glean from texts like the Gita, and then it's about having practices. That word is so applicable, the word practice. I have started practices and worked on making sure that they became a practice. And that word means so much to me because it's something that I can return to again and again. And especially in these times, I find that it's so crucial that I double down and return to my practices and make sure that they're non-negotiable. That if everything is swirling around me, the time that I spent building those practices, creating those, the synaptic, it's again and again, we were wiring and firing up in the brain and like, okay, now it's serving me. But it doesn't matter whether you've been doing that for, you once told me you had been meditating every day since the 70s and you hadn't missed a day since the 70s, and I could say, well, I've been doing, every day for 6 years. And somebody might say, well, I've never even meditated before. I'm curious, or I've never read the Bhagavad Gita, or I've never read these texts, but I'm curious. I'm interested.
Well, people often say, it's a funny thing, the idea in our hacking culture, like what's the quick way?
The Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week,
Well, there is a quick way. It's to start right now. That's the quickest way. Just start,
right?
And start building. And I want to pick up on that. That's very important. And building the capacity now, just building it now in a lot of ways by starting in the midst of this cycle. If you're not already having that habit of meditation, if you're not already having a habit of exercise, if you're not already having a habit of good eating, to stabilize and sleep hygiene, these are sort of the fundamentals, and loving connection with people in your world. This is the opportunity to begin to cultivate those. And every year we put in a vegetable garden, and we put in one in this year as well. And one of the things that's very clear is that we cannot actually hack the rate at which the kale is going to grow. It's going to grow.
You can throw in like some sort of spiritual miracle grow on there or whatever. Sort of. Yeah.
Exactly. We keep watering. And that innate potential, which we all have, that innate potential for wakefulness, an innate potential for purposefulness, the innate potential for compassion and connection, by watering it with practices, then they unfold, then they blossom, then they strengthen. And this is a fabulous time to do it. Yeah. one of the things years and years ago when I went to, I was visiting my teacher, and it had been a really challenging time in the economy and a really challenging time in my life as linked to the economy. And I've been self-employed, for over 30 years. And I was saying to him, I feel like I'm just staying in the same place, just keeping my head above water in this river. And he looked at me and he went, wait a minute, you're staying in the same place? That's fantastic. And he goes, because right now, just to have your head there and to be in a state of relative stability you have to be moving your legs and arms underneath the surface so powerfully. When the current softens, you're going to have all this capacity to move. And that was just a beautiful reframe, because I was feeling like, oh, I'm just, wow, he was super positive to me about that. And so the Gita is a text that we can use to both profoundly connect with our inner wisdom, and to do it, though, in a measured, mindful, and holistic way. One of the things that we emphasize in Wisdom Heart is that our spiritual awakening and our life really unfolds and progresses at the pace of integration, which is to say that the whole thing moves forward as a whole. We can't cut off one aspect of our life, like just focus on our work and make that amazing and neglect our health and neglect our relationships. No, because ultimately those aspects that have been unattended to call out. And the longer we don't attend to them, the more primitive in a way, and the more chaotic they become. So we proceed at the pace of integration. If there's a part of us that's afraid, we slow down, we pause. If there's a part of us that's uncertain, we pause and we meditatively connect with that aspect of ourself, which is to mean we bring loving awareness to it, not to change it, but just to be with it. It needs attention. It needs contact from the part of us that is wise, because we're having this. The Gita is kind of a reflection of our own inner experience. There's a part of us that's Christian. There's a part of us, in other words, that's the wisdom place. And there's all these human dimensions of us as well. And they need to be in conversation. The human emotions, the human concerns need to be in a conversation with the inner wisdom. And the Gita is really reflecting our own inner process in that regard, and cultivating our capacity to listen, and embody the deepest understanding.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you've always described meditation that way as well. You talked about developing a capacity or reserve, to be able to handle the inevitable challenges that come your way, the inevitable things that are going to come your way. You can't stop. One of my favorite quotes is by a Boston-based meditation teacher named John Kabat-Zinn, famous meditation teacher, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Anyway, as Kabat-Zinn's quote was, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf."
It's so true, right?
I love that. It reminds me of that quote. That quote always comes to mind. But building this capacity, that's what it's about. And so, as you said, you can start anywhere. It doesn't matter if you've been doing it since the 70s or 6 years ago or this week. You just decided, like, hey, okay. This conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, like, how is that relevant? This text that was written thousands of years ago, the human condition does not change. It has not changed in all that time. It's still relevant. You could argue it's more relevant now.
Well, it's true. And
in this time of coronavirus and fears and a whole world that's paradigm shifts happening all around us. We've had conversations through the years about topics like this, and they were relevant, but I feel like this conversation is the most relevant it's ever been in all the times that we've had these conversations.
Yes.
People need the tools now more than ever.
And listening more, taking the time to listen, not overreacting, not being head in the sand, as you said, being wise, taking care of the practicalities. And among those practicalities, one primary among those practicalities is taking care of our own mind, taking care of our own nervous system, so that we have the capacity both to notice, where is life opening up for me right now? Obviously, it's closing down in many ways. But where is it also opening? Where are the doorways that are being revealed for me, for you, individually? And then there's also this, obviously, how, as I cultivate, as you cultivate, as we individually cultivate our capacity to be balanced, that balance is part of the world. That balance is part of our family, it's part of our community, and it's part of our global nervous system. Many people have been calling and emailing and talking to me about they're waking up in the middle of the night. It's like their nervous system is plugged into the kind of collective nervous system, which is in high anxiety. Well, it's revealing something that's always been the case. We are deeply interwoven at a subtle level. And now the signal is so high that many people are waking up. So the anxiety that is flowing through the collective nervous system is also flowing through our own. And we can become like a purifying station. It's flowing through us. We can balance it. We can heal it. We can recalibrate it and then send it back out into the system itself, now in a purified way. Davey and I are kidding about it lately. We've been calling it, we're at the reverse osmosis station.
Like the water.
The water comes from the city. It's terrible, but it goes through your chakra system, and it goes through your inner being, and then it can be sent out as loving awareness back into the reservoir of collective awareness. So we each have a role to play in that regard.
Yeah. So Eric, what does the Gita say? You were talking about, the Krishna and Arjuna, these conversations, and how do we access more of Krishna's wisdom? Are there particular practices or tools that just at the start we can start using to access more of that Krishna wisdom?
The first thing is so after the complaining in the first chapter, and I don't know what I'm doing, and Krishna says, okay, well, the first thing is to realize who you are. That's just the first thing, just to set a framework.
A little small thing. Who am I?
Well, in this regard, if your job went away, you're still here. So that really wasn't who you were. Mm-hmm. The things that have been taken away and you're still here, none of them are who you are in essence. They all have a function to play, but they're not who you are in essence. So if a job went away, if a title went away, if a routine went away, if a relationship went away, whatever it would be, and you're still here, those were potentially beautiful attributes of your experience, but they weren't the essence of who you are. So he starts with that and says, and this is of course an ongoing, spiritual inquiry, really, really, what's the essence of who I am? Who am I? Who am I? Now it points to it, and we can say the words. It's not any different from what any mystic or meditator has revealed through the ages. You're the one who's aware of your experience. That's it. You are the awareness itself. Right.
So, because if you have a voice in your head, if you have this conversation, if you're noticing this is out going on out front. Who's the one noticing that's out front? Who's behind that? Whatever the term you want to use.
Turn around to look. There's nothing there. Yeah. It's only awareness. It's only awareness.
Only awareness, yes.
That's it. So this idea is how it begins. First of all, to realize you're only awareness. But that doesn't kind of take you off the hook of the practicalities. That's one of the beauties of the Gita. It means that as awareness, we have actually, once we realize that's what we are, we're not our job, we're not our, position in the childhood order. Those all have purposes and realities, but that's not who we are in essence. I'm not the oldest child. I'm not a New Yorker, really, essentially, because I'm not in New York anymore. New York may be in me, but I'm not in New York anymore, right? These are not things I have. They're expressions. They're platforms through which I can express what? My awareness, my compassion, my love, and my creativity. I am that source of awareness. I am the source of creativity. I'm the source of love and loving awareness. Okay, that's how it starts. And then it says, but don't just hide out. That doesn't mean you can hide out and ignore any of the domains of your experience. And that's one of the uniquenesses of the Gita. It's a very grounded, practical approach, which says, yes, cultivate your meditation, cultivate your inner peace, cultivate your sense more and more that I am the awareness, I am the presence, I am the loving presence. Cultivate that deeply. But that's just the beginning of your meditation. Now your meditation gets up off the cushion and comes out into your situation. So there's like two oars on the boat of our life: the oar of inner practices and the oar of outer expression, the oar of meditation and the oar of action, it's called in the Gita. And the ancient commentators would say, if you get in the river and you only row with the left oar of meditation, your boat's just going to go around in a circle. You're never going to get anywhere. If you get in the boat in the river and you only row with the oar of action, the right-handed oar, you're just going to go in a circle the other way. If you row with both, it's an integration. If you row with both, in other words, if you take time daily to center many times a day, it just takes a breath or two, or for a longer period if you wish. But the key, the secret of meditative transformation is not how long you sit on the cushion, it's how deep you go, how much absorption and settledness comes. And then to take that quality and to carry it out into your actions, because we each have, the Gita calls it a Dharma, we each have a purpose, like you're like the podcast. We have a
purpose, yes.
Life on purpose, right? Which is both resting our life on our purpose and being intentionally on purpose, on the path of our purpose. Yeah. One of the attributes, one of the characteristics of on purpose the Gita describes is that there's a quality of intrinsic fulfillment that comes, a quality of intrinsic joy that comes when we are aligned with what they call our Svadharma, or our self-purpose, our deep inner purpose. And that quality of intrinsic joy, it doesn't mean that we don't want to get paid. It doesn't mean we don't want a hug and a kiss. No, of course, those are all beautiful feedback loops. But there's also this inherent fulfillment that comes. And why is that so important? Because it frees us from being dependent on the pat on the head. It frees us from requiring the world to recognize us, because it's a bubbling up, it's an overflowing of our natural gifts and our natural joy. The Gita has many chapters on talking, on refining and attuning ourselves to that inherent Dharma, that inherent fulfillment. So the sitting down, the being still is essential. But we don't sit down to become awareness. We sit down because we realize we are awareness anyway, and we're just cultivating, again, thank you for the word, our capacity to embody that and step into our situation, our role.
Yeah, that's why I've always loved your work, Eric, what you and Davey do at Wisdom Heart. I've said this on the show before, and it's what initially attracted me to your work when I found out about what you were doing with Wisdom Heart was that you said right up front, like, this is everyday wisdom for, it's practical things that you could take into the world. We didn't choose to be, monks. We didn't choose to spend our lives in the caves or the monastery or wherever, hold away. We chose to be householders. We chose to come here and participate in normal life, to get married and have children and have normal jobs and be in this world in the way that most of us move through the world. And yet we want these tools. We want to have the wisdom and the ability and the facility to be able to take these concepts and not just have them, as you said, when we're in meditation. The aha moment is great, but then how can I take that when I'm trying to make decisions about, do I go to the grocery store in a pandemic, and am I infecting people, and how do I keep my family safe, and oh my God, I lost my job or all my clients, and I'm not sure how I can pay the rent, and I'm freaking out here. And all the things are spinning and it seems like I'm out of control. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Oh, okay. I can come back to center.
The first thing is, yes, we have to settle the puppy down, right? We have to settle the system down, pacify it, not again to avoid, but to build a base of clarity. Now, the part of us that's freaking out, like Arjun in the beginning of the text, the part of us, he says it anyway, I don't know what to do. That is just a true statement. The part of us that's freaking out is unqualified to discern what to do. So we have to first, at the bodily level, settle the nervous system. And then at the mental level, quiet the activity of the mind, not empty the mind, not have no thoughts. Thoughts come and go. There's nothing we can do about that. Like hair grows out of our head. That's just the nature of it. Thoughts grow out of consciousness, but they come and go. And to become more, I like to think of it as a connoisseur, more of an epicure of the quality of awareness itself, shifting our attention and getting a sense, even as you're listening right now, if you're listening to the sound of the podcast, or if you're watching it, you see and hear, but shifting subtly inwardly to notice the noticing. Notice the noticing. What's the quality of that awareness? What's the quality of the attention? And we shift from being fixated on the contents of awareness to the awaring itself. Oh, that is the magic. That's really what builds our capacity to meet the unexpected with presence, to meet the unexpected with openness. There's a famous poem by Rumi that describes the human being as a guest house, that every day a different kind of visitor comes and knocks on the door. Some days it's happy, and some days it's sad, and some days it's confused, and some days it's certain. Every day there's a knock on the door, and we're the host. And so this witness awareness, this loving awareness, is the hosting function. It allows, you're a guest. You can come in. You can't necessarily take up residence. You don't own the place, but you are a guest. And I want to feed you, nourish you, and then send you on your way. You'll leave and continue your journey. So the Gita really focuses on first knowing who you are, and then practicing to build capacity inwardly, and then daily, seeing our daily life as a ritual of awakening. Everyone we meet, and now we're having a lot of opportunities, particularly to meet the people who are most skilled at pushing our buttons. If we're in our family units in the house, they're like, nowhere to go.
Yeah, so while we're sheltering.
While we're sheltering with the very people, spiritually speaking, that we came into this life to learn the most from and to have the most profound healing with. Now, if we're on the path of awakening, we know that. That's our narrative. Our family is the crucible of working with our most fundamental emotional karmas. Wonderful. And if they're not in the house, they're in your head. Okay. So it's all grist for that awakening mill. The Gita itself is a family story. Arjuna is about to go to war with his family. Does that sound like Thanksgiving? Or does that sound like something we're familiar with? He's in struggle with his family, and there's all kinds of money issues and power issues and love issues, and who cares most and who gets the most. It's just like every family. And that's the situation. Oh, here we are. This is why the Gita is so beautiful right now, because many of us, sheltered in place with the very beings who can both reveal our most sensitive wounds and heal and open us to the deepest love and the deepest care. So it's a profound opportunity to both take time for yourself and to practice bringing loving connection to those you care about, whether it's in the room, in the house, or whether it's on, the virtual connection.
Zooming and Skype. Yeah, I sort of want to rewrite bits of the Gita with, adding some Zoom and Skype calls in there, or whatever the medium you're using to connect with people now here.
Yes.
Yeah, so Eric, here in the times of the pandemic, this is another very relevant question. I know that, from your readings in person and over time, we've talked about this, that the Gita addresses this concept of letting go of what no longer serves us. And boy, are we ever getting the opportunity to let go of those things that no longer serve us, oftentimes very quickly, oftentimes multiple opportunities for that all at once. Talk to me about that.
That's really important because this kind of crisis reveals the cracks in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? The cracks in our personal system, our interpersonal system, and our sort of collective, institutional system. And I was on the phone the other day with a person who is a head of planning for a large famous international city. And he was saying, in city planning, there's 3 stages to dealing with the crisis. There's the pre-stage, like get it before it even came. And this is what you were speaking of, like cultivating the habits and the practices, before there's even on the horizon, what are we doing to be ready? There's the moment of the encounter stage, right? Which is where we have to deal very practically with the blocking and tackling of the situation, to get the hand wipes and such like that, to get the supplies. Okay. Then there is what he called the rebuilding stage, the renewal stage. He goes, because you never want to go back to what was the old normal. That's the important thing. And that's the tendency, as he was saying, that's the tendency in large urban structures, is just to kind of reestablish old patterns. But it's also why is that the case? It's because each of us individually have that tendency to kind of try to reestablish. But he said, you want to start actually the renewal earlier than you think. You want to start that earlier than you think so that you're putting in place, you're seeing, it's revealing cracks in our own belief system, cracks in our relational system, shortfalls in our spiritual practice system, and start building those in now so that when the conditions rebalance, and we don't know when that will be, we never do, but they will change. We do know that. When they change, that we have created that capacity, we've created those new habits, we've created those new structures that will be a platform for living in a new life. So it's not fighting conditions, it's meeting them. It's not struggling with our inner life. It's cultivating the new capacities that are called for. And that takes stillness, takes a certain amount of courage, and it takes the willingness to move step by step by step and recognize that, yep, probably going to make some missteps. That is not actually new. We've all been doing it all along. Now we can learn, proceed with more mindfulness. My teacher used to quote the great Chinese sage Confucius. We call him Confucius. He said that Confucius would say that the sage moves through life as if walking on thin ice. That's what each step is. What you test. It's mindful. Oh, not rushing ahead. Is it going to support? Oh, good. Keep moving. Is it going to support? Keep moving. The key here is that we do have a purpose. We do have a purpose. It's not what your mother told you. It's not what your father told you. It's not what your priest, Rabbi Swami told you. It's not what, the New Age person told you. It's only can be told to you internally. And the journey of awakening is this journey of refining and reconnecting to it more and more clearly, embodying it more and more authentically, and expressing it more and more creatively. And this is the fact that you're doing your podcast again is a beautiful example, right? Of coming back online, not literally, but also coming back online for your own being, to allow the gifts that you have. And we can take that, each of us, we can take Greg's example as a mirror. What is it that we have been neglecting? What can we bring back that is truly precious to us and is an offering to the world?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I just felt like For me, I had this profound sense of, oh, I have these, what I would call in my vernacular, we each have a different vernacular, but in my vernacular was my superpowers. It's something I've cultivated since I was a little kid. I pretended to be a radio guy when I was 6 years old, and I worked in radio and then hosted a podcast for now, coming up on a decade for 2 different shows. And I had put that part of me away. I needed to get away from it for a while, a couple of years. But then in times where there was so much unknown and, okay, well, the world is, people are struggling. What can I bring to the table? What can I step up? What are my gifts, my superpowers? In the end, like, how does it tie in with my Dharma, my path? And then I saw that, okay, by bringing conversations like this back out into the world, to be able to have these conversations, it would help other people potentially. It would help myself. It would help my guest. It would just seem like it was the right time. It was just something that seemed to be needed right now. And I'm seeing people do that all around. And that doesn't discount the very real need, because there's also another thread going on. This is almost it's like Krishna and Arjuna. There's this battle between, I hear some people saying, oh, well, right now what you should do is you should just be silent and sit with yourself and, respect the people that are going through very real suffering and pain and death and all of that. And I'm seeing the other side of the fence is people saying, well, you should, step up and step out and, use your gifts and things. And so for me, I came to this conclusion. I've been sort of wrestling with that question that it's urgent that you do both, that you go inwards and you respect and you honor, and yet also, if you feel ready and you feel able to then step up. And so that's what I felt like I needed to do. That was my path. And right now I've had the capacity, because of what I went through in the past few years, because it was that capacity word again. The capacity was built, it was developed, it was honed over the past few years for me to now step back into this role. And really it was about capacity. Yes. So we're sort of coming full circle in that, but yeah.
Nice. That's really important. Yeah, you do hear both of those narratives, and it's never an either or, it's never stillness or action that's separate from each other. And, literally it can't ever be. I mean, even if you don't practice meditation, you're going to go to sleep at night. So there's going to be, it's built into the system that you're going to let go of your world and turn into a place of stillness and quietude.
Yeah. The
difference between falling asleep and going unconscious and turning in with meditation is that it's done with awareness. It's done with awareness. So we turn into our inner world with awareness, and we touch the same rejuvenative, renewing states and resources, but we do it with awareness. And that makes all the difference, because it makes the difference of strengthening and lighting up those neural networks of renewal, because we're present to it. And the more we're present to it, the more it myelinates, or the more it strengthens those networks, so that when we come out, we can express the purpose.
Yeah.
In the chapter where Arjuna is saying, so what, he's saying the same thing. What do you do? Like, what is it? What are the keys? And Krishna talks about meditation, and then he describes what happens when we meditate. And he says, the attainment of the mind's tranquility. So once we attain that tranquility, brings all sorrow to an end eloquently. I love that line. So the attainment of tranquility brings the sorrows to an end eloquently, because our nervous system is then bathed in a sense of peacefulness. By withdrawing the mind from its shallow surface, the sage, that's you, if you're meditating, the sage is held firmly to life's holy purpose. By withdrawing the mind from its shallow surface. So as long as we're fixated on the unstable surface reactivity of our mind and of our world, we do have to pay attention to the news. But if we're glued to social media endlessly, we have actually lost the plot, the deeper current that's available. Because the madness of the news, it's a cycle, they call it. If we are primarily plugged into the news cycle, the aim of the news cycle is to keep your eyeballs on the news cycle. But there's a deeper flow, there's a deeper current, there's a deeper cycle, which is the cycle of returning again and again to your holy purpose. Your holy purpose is to be yourself and to bring your gifts, infused by loving awareness and purified of emotional expectations to your world.
Yeah.
That's the message of the Gita.
That's great. The title of the course is Face Fear, Live Free. So we talked about fear a lot. Well, what's your definition of freedom, Eric? What does that mean? How do you live free?
Free is to be able to see the opportunity of this present moment, the open door. It's to be uncompulsed by our conditioning. That's it. Just in this moment. In this moment. So in this moment, what's the choice that's presenting itself to me? What's the opportunity here? What is life asking of me in this moment? And to be sensitive to my own reactivity, my own habits of seeking control, my own habits of seeking approval, my own habits of trying to dominate, to be sensitive to how those feel in my nervous system, and to recognize if those are driving, I'm not free. That's not being free. That's being pushed by emotional compulsion. Freedom is the sense of there's nothing I absolutely have to do right this second, but life is inviting an action to be taken.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll step.
I love that. I love that you're talking about, the who's driving the train, that question. And I mean, that's really been a big thing for me in every area of my life. When I put the show on hold, I've spent quite a bit of time looking at patterns and sort of pattern recognition, a lot of work around self-awareness, and then thinking which patterns served me and which did not, and then trying to take those via practices and self-awareness into everyday life. And so here and now, in the time of the pandemic and the coronavirus, and we're sheltering in place, I can apply that in ways such as I'm sheltering in place with my family. It's been very comforting, and I landed with family members that I love dearly, but I also have a history with,
Right.
both good and sometimes not so healthy. And so I'm able to pause because of this capacity that I've built and developed, and then, okay, does this pattern serve me? No. So I want to be free from this unconscious conditioning, this unconscious pattern. I can make different choices. Because you don't get different output, you don't get different outcomes unless you make different choices. And so therefore, it's like a learning, we're in this big laboratory of life right now. We're really just it's just sped up, and we're getting to try these experiments at an increased pace, at increased speed. And so people that have triggered you your whole lives are here. Okay, I can try to respond to them in a different way out of the pattern of conditioning. Oh, okay. Well, if I change my how I'm showing up, how I'm reacting, my awareness of them, and then how I'm dealing with them, how that manifests in my relations to them, the words that I say, the energy that I bring, I see a shift in them. And then it starts a healthier cycle of then they reciprocate with more awareness. Yes. And they reciprocate by starting to break their patterns. And it becomes
Absolutely.
this.
That's exactly right. We are linked, and that's really important. It only takes one within the system to begin to transform the system, particularly in those smaller family systems, right? We actually have a tremendous amount of leverage if, like you're saying, we can cultivate self-awareness and bring loving awareness to our own reactivity. Then in and of itself, it starts a virtuous cycle operating within our family. Karma is our word, and with it starts healing the family karma. And one of the things that starts to happen is, we take people off the hook. That's important. We just take them off the hook, and we realize they're like me. They're reactive, just like me. And if I want them to be more mature, maybe that's a good invitation to my own system to become more mature. Yeah. They're just like me. They want to be loved and happy. They want to be seen, and they want to be respected, just like me. Yeah. Beautiful. And I can then start to recognize that. Davey was saying this morning that back in the day when we were in our 20s together, and living in Chicago, studying at the Temple of Kriya Yoga with our guru, and spending all of our time there and being immersed in that reality, her grandparents were very worried about us, and they thought we're just going to not survive and stuff like that. Just like people are worried now. They were worried, and they would send us these care packages. And we were, we were all in our yogi, vegetarian, very pure lifestyle. And they would send us, tuna fish and ham and cheese doodles and all these things that we wouldn't eat. But what was clear was they were sending us these packages of love. That was of care. They were care packages. That's what they called them. They were sending us care packages. We could receive the care. We didn't have to eat the chemicals, but we could receive the care. And everyone in our family is, sending us a wake-up call. What a beautiful gift. Wake up to our own reactivity, practice inner purification, inner balance, and then engage. That's the whole path of the Gita. That's the whole path of our life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate being able to talk about it with you.
Yeah, fantastic. Eric, do you have a favorite quote? You've shared a couple of stories from the Gita. Do you have a favorite quote that just always comes back to you? I know that you've read a number of them in the Sunday morning meditation sessions in person there at Wisdom Heart.
One of the ones I really like is talking about the awakened state and the awakened sage. That it said, "Tell me because Arjuna. So what is this person like? What do they look like and all this stuff? How do they show up?" And I'm looking for it. Oh, here it goes. It says, "So when that soul is lucky, the heart does not excessively leap. And when unlucky, the illumined does not overly weep." I like that because it says, you know what? Something cool happens. Yeah, it's awesome. But I don't have to turn it into some kind of identity. It's a beautiful thing. And when something sad happens, something unfortunate happens, being awakened doesn't mean I've had a nervous system removal operation. I'm still going to have all of the human emotions. And so I can weep. I can be sad. I can grieve. Yes, I can grieve wisely, recognizing that, the love that I thought, the form that I thought that this love or this success or this meaning was going to come in, that form didn't last. And there's a sadness, a natural human sadness in that, but not overly weep, not turning into a story of identity. It says, without compulsion, the soul is unconfined, back to the freedom. Mm-hmm. And that soul is then illumined, of stable mind, rebalanced and ready to move forward. So it's fine. It's natural. It's inevitable. We want to have a human nervous system because that is the very vehicle that allows us to receive the awakening and to transmit it to others.
Beautiful. So, Eric, how does this course work? The course, people are going to be able to sign up for this at the Wisdom Heart website. Let's talk a little bit about what you're actually offering. If people are intrigued by these concepts and they say, hey, I want to learn more about this Bhagavad Gita, this 2,500-year-old text, my interest is piqued, they can then go on the website and it was at the Wisdom Heart website at wisdomheart.com is the website. And there's a /Gita.
/Gita. That's it.
Gita. Very easy.
Yep. Gita. G-I-T-A.
We'll put that in the show notes. We'll have that as a text, or if you're watching the YouTube video version of this, you can check out easy to remember, Gita. But what do people get when they sign up for this? How's it work?
Well, it works. There's 3 ways you can sign up for it. One way we call dip your toe in. So that means it's a 40 module, 40-day, 40 lesson experience. So what I've done is I've taken the whole Gita and I've curated out 40 teachings and 40 meditations that go from the first chapter to the 18th chapter. So you get like a guided tour through it, but not just like academically, meditatively, so that the teachings are internalized. So that's one. The dip your toe in is you get the first part. You can dip your toe in for 4 of the sessions for free, so you can check it out. Yeah. And the other way is you can take the whole thing in a kind of do-it-yourself package, and just for a couple more bucks, you can take the whole thing with all of Davey and Eric's support and the community, and 9 months additional Wisdom Heart community support in addition to these 40 days, so that because our commitment is to your awakening life. That's what our commitment is. And we want the community to be there for those who are living a fully engaged, complex modern life and want to awaken to the deepest Dharma, live a truly awakened life in the midst of that, because that's what we're here for in this age.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've known you for enough years now to know that you live it, you teach it. Eric's the real deal, folks. I can vouch for real. It's a beautiful thing. So Eric, as we wrap up our conversation here, we're coming up to about an hour. First of all, I want to remind people, if they're interested in you and these concepts, there are three previous conversations on my website. I'll link to those on the Life on Purpose show notes page. So you can learn about Eric's personal history, how he discovered Kriya Yoga as a young boy in New York City and reading Ram Dass's Be Here Now, and going to one of the two yoga centers in New York, and you hear all about the backstory. I remember, we've chatted about that a number of times, and how you came to California and how you established your business and the work that you do there at Wisdom Heart. So we'll point people back to the backstory there and other conversations that are all relevant, and they all tie in with this one. But obviously, we are living in unprecedented and uncertain times right now. So it was perfect timing that we're able to have this conversation, and perfect timing that you're releasing this course on the Gita as such a beautiful companion for people to be able to refer to and help navigate these times. And so, Eric, if you had any final advice, just simple advice for those who may be struggling right now in this pandemic and with all the fear and the unknown and the uncertainty right now, where can people start? What can they do to start to ground themselves, to move forward in a way with more grace and ease?
Recognize that self-care is world care. It's not selfish. To calm your body, to clear your mind, to connect to the good within. It's part, you're contributing your presence to the world. Self-care is world care. And start with the simple practices that have a cup of tea, look at the clouds, sit, breathe, tell the body you're safe. And the more you embody that, then you'll open up to the deeper message that's calling you into this life.
That's excellent advice. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, as always, for another great conversation. It's been awesome today. And, looking forward to seeing you both on Zoom on Sundays, and the daily meditations. I haven't had a chance to do those yet during the week. You can check those out. All that information is on the website on wisdomheart.com. You can find it there, including the Gita course. And looking forward to, when we get to the other side of this, seeing you again in person there on Sunday morning meditations.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great chatting, folks. And if you like what you're hearing here in this video conversation or the audio version, there are 250 previous episodes on both Life on Purpose and my previous podcast, Life on Purpose, on my previous podcast, Radio Enzo. See, I'm still scraping off a little bit of rust here as we're getting back on the wagon here. But you can find all that information at lifeonpurposeshow.com. You can find the archives there. Both to each of the podcasts going all the way back to 2011, including the previous conversations with Eric that I mentioned. Looking forward to doing this again. And this special conversation series, it's called Seeing the Light in Uncertain Times. Relevant conversations about how we're all managing and getting through this challenging, unknown times, and yet holding hope and optimism and love and light in our hearts. So thanks for joining us today. Until next time, I'm your host, Greg Berg. Take care.